recording now. So now you see the Unity screen, and we're doing lab number 8, which is a street scene. And remember, we have to do the build settings and then change the player settings to eliminate the various aspect ratios. Okay, and just keep 16:9. And you could always test where your camera is by double clicking on camera. Now I want to import all those assets from my desktop, which is Lab 8 project files. So I want to get the bicyclist, the bird whistling, the cat, the dog bark, dog cat fight, the dog shepherd, the fire engine, the fire truck image, the street. Okay, so I have a bunch of assets that I just imported, and we're just going to build the scene for now. Just a single scene is fine, and we want the street view, and then we could put the fire truck in there. So don't forget to change the order and layer to something like 10, and then that fire truck is off in the distance, so it's going to be very small at first, but we're going to have it animate. So I'm going to have it come forward. So I click on animation, create. Let's just have it do it within a 5-second time frame. So say create, and then I'm just going to call it fire truck. And then remember, we want to see the 5 seconds. So record, click on 5 seconds, and then bring the fire truck into the foreground, make it much bigger, and then stop recording. So now when you play that, it's going to, come from a very small into the foreground. Okay, so that's kind of, and don't forget also to change the loop, take the looping off. Now I want to put the dog into the scene, but I don't want it, if I just drag the dog into the scene, it's not a button. I want to create that as a button. So actually, before I do that, I'm just going to show you the quick way where you can just have the fire engine music or audio playing when the scene loads. All you got to do is take you see this fire engine audio clip, drag it to the hierarchy, and just drop it in there. So watch what happens now. Okay, so it just pretty much plays right when the scene begins. So that's really no work at all. You just have to get the audio and then put it into the scene. Now the next thing we want to do is have the dog bark as a button. So in order to do that, we have to create a button. Okay, so first of all, just like we did in previous labs, you right click over here and then you say UI button, and then make sure that you set up the canvas, which is its parent, so that it's screen space camera, and then drag the camera to none camera, and then might as well change the order and layer to like 10 there, and then change the UI scale mode to scale with screen size, and then you could drag the dog to where it says for the image, oops, I'm still in canvas, so click to button and then drag the dog to the UI sprite. So now we'll see the dog in the scene. Okay, oops. So if that little circle, if you grab that little circle accidentally, that's just kind of like a pivot point when you want to rotate, so you don't need to grab it by that circle, but I want to make the dog a little smaller. And then notice that it still has text on it, so get rid of the text. You just right click and delete that text. So now, okay, that's fine. It's a button. And when I click on it, however, nothing happens. I mean, I want to put the cat into the scene too, because the audio sound that I have has them kind of both like talking to each other or arguing. So anyway, the cat is just a static image, but the dog is going to be something that we want to attach a sound to. Okay, so what you have to do next is you have to create an audio object, an audio game object. So if you right click in the hierarchy and you say audio, you see that when you right click there, it's audio, and then audio source. So it's always a good idea to name things. So I'm going to name that dog bark audio source. Okay, very descriptive. And what you could do, I think in the instructions I say to drag the audio from the dog bark, cat fight, or any of them, whatever audio you want, into this box here. But in fact, that's kind of redundant. If you do that, well, let's see what happens when we put that here, audio clip, and then I play it. Okay, so if you wanted to have that play on awake, you could do that. This checkbox here, play on awake, means that it should play right when the scene opens. So uncheck that. But you'll find even with that, the button isn't going to work until I do something else. So remember, with a button, you have to go and put an event, just like we had for scene control in the previous lab. So you have to go to the button, which is the dog, go to the on-click event, hit plus, and this time drag the dog bark audio source to where it says none object. So what we did before with the scene control, we had a scene controller object, and we dragged that there. But since we are dealing with an audio, we go to no function, and you see audio source. It has a play one shot is the thing that we want to play. And then now if we test it, still not working when I click the dog. That's because on the on that button, you have to also drag. I think the first time it doesn't affect whether the button plays the sound or not, but this does. So if you drag this to where it says none audio clip, now you've got it set up where it's clickable as a button, and okay, so it will play the audio when we press that button, which is the image of a dog. Now we want maybe to add a couple more little animations to this. So let's take this bicyclist and put that in the scene. You know, it's kind of abstract here, but that's fine. We'll just, we did that fire engine within 5 seconds, so we'll have to get him across within 4 seconds maybe. And we want him to be more in the foreground, so we're going to put that as 15, so that, you know, he's in front of the fire truck. And then, you know, this is just a typical animation. We just hit animation with the thing selected, and then create, and then we'll just say bicyclist, and then remember, we have to plan it out. So I want it to be within 4 seconds, so I'm going to record, click on 4 seconds, and then move the bicyclist across, and then stop recording. So now I have, I have it working out with a little bit more activity. Okay, and then you want to take off the loop on that, so go to the bicyclist animator, and then uncheck that. And then, let's say we want to put the bird up there. I have another audio, so I'm going to put the bird into the scene that I captured from Google Images. So I'm going to put that bird up on top of one of the buildings, and it's quite a large bird. So let's reduce the size a little bit. So that's a button also. So I'll do the same thing with the button on that, and I'm going to put the bird whistle. So in this case, we're going to create another UI, not UI, but audio source, and I want to call this one bird chirp audio source. And this time I'm not going to drag the audio to it. I don't want it to play on awake anyway. I just want to use it as a container that has that functionality to play the whatever the audio that we have. And you know what? I did it wrong by putting that bird in there because we don't want it to just be a static image, right? So remember, for this button here, I didn't name it properly, so I want to call this dog button. Okay, so you come up with whatever naming convention you want, and then I want to right click and say UI button. So I get another button in there, and I might as well name it now, and I'm going to call this bird button. And then I know I don't want text on it, so I'm going to delete this text, and then I want to drag the bird to the UI sprite, and then now I could position where I want that bird. Okay, so then remember, you have the bird chirp audio source, so you go to the bird button. See how when you're naming things, it makes it easier to manipulate things because you know exactly what's what. So for the bird button, we want to hit plus, and then we want to take the bird chirp audio source and drag it to non-object, and then change the no function audio source to play one shot. And then the audio clip is the bird whistling audio that I had there. So now we could test it. Okay. Okay. So essentially, that's this lab. I mean, when you look at our assignment sheet, I want you to animate a couple of things, put some buttons in there. There's also add a button that will display text only by selecting the triangle next to the button and drop down the list to change the text for a text button. Press here for greeting. So what we could do is create another button and just put a greeting, and you could find sounds for that in Freesound. So I'm going to stop the recording right now, and